tonight's episode, Vero, which was entitled Prochnost. Am I saying that right? You would think that I would know how to say it right because I literally just watched the episode where they mentioned it a couple times. But anyways, Prochnost, I think. Episode 5 of season 8, aka the last season ever. Episode 5 means we are halfway through. And this episode tonight took place mostly in Russia. We also had like some side quests. So we had a side quest with Diggle and the return of Roy, which was really fun. More fun than I expected. And then most of tonight's episode took place in Russia, where Oliver's kids get to meet Uncle Anatoly. They don't call him that, unfortunately. And there's sort of this whole Fight Club setting, and Oliver trains Mia at the beginning of the episode, and then naturally they have to fight together towards the end, and he's trying to balance being protective with, like, realizing she's, like, a really good fighter, and I don't know, you get the idea. Anyways, that was the setting of tonight's episode, and let's start, as we always do, by rating tonight's episode on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being terrible, worst episode of the season yet, and 5 being you loved everything about it. I have the chat pulled up. Stormy says, I'll give this episode a 3.5 out of 5, minus Siren, who served no purpose. I loved all the scenes. I forgot to even mention Siren in the overview of the episode. Granted, I just finished watching this, like 11 minutes ago, because I don't really get what purpose she did serve, other than that piece at the end where she snitches on Lila, and for some reason that really rubbed me the wrong way. Now, I am rooting for Lila to kind of like come around and get back on like, you know, good terms with the team and them to forgive her. Like, the team has forgiven people for way worse stuff, as evidenced by the fact that Oliver was siding with Anatoly when Anatoly's like trying to kill him, do terrible stuff. Anyways, so people have been forgiven for worse on this show. Men have been forgiven for worse in particular. I really do want Lila to come around, but having Siren turn on her, it's like, on what grounds? Where do you get the gall to turn on her after everything you've done? And I just don't like the premise of women turning on women, especially like morally ambiguous gray area women turning on women. It's like, you guys should understand each other, understand more this idea of having to do bad to do good and all that kind of, that really frustrated me at the end. I get that Lila's collab with the Monitor has to come out, but I hated that that was how it came out. It's not even that I'm rooting for Siren to be like some sort of likable character. I really don't care about her one way or the other. She's sort of in this randomly as like this essentially character that they've never known before and met on Earth 2, just because she's like familiar looking. And throughout tonight's episode, she really didn't have any purpose. She would just like sort of show up after they were already rescued and then like get dismissed when there were family talks, and it was just kind of like random and weird. But I found myself towards the end of the episode, I actually tweeted, I said, I wish that Lila was on the mission with Oliver and the kids, because I think that would have offered a really cool, like, nuanced perspective. A lot of the sort of parenting advice that he got from Anatoly, he could also sort of get that to an extent from Lila, and then you would also get this underpinning of Lila sort of keeping something from him and that she's not necessarily following everything she's saying. You know what I'm saying? That I think would have been really cool. And Lila could have been there in addition to everybody else. It's not like you have to swap one woman out for the other. I just didn't really get why Laurel was there. They didn't really give her away. Anyways, having Laurel turn on Lila at the end, I really hated that. I really did. Kate Johnson gives it a 4. She says, spin-off, that's why Laurel was there. That makes sense. Like, the assorted birds who have been in this so far are going to be traveling in time forward, and the spin-off set in 2040. I get it. It's fine. For the sake of an Arrow episode, it just didn't make any sense. And I wouldn't have cared if also we had Lila with Oliver and the kids. I think that could have given more depth to her story, more depth to his story. We would have had a little bit more oomph to the betrayal if she had sort of been alongside them this entire time. Stormy says, I agree, Lila would work better in the spot instead of Siren, who had 5 lines, slow walked around the bad guy's office, and snitched on Lila. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I say I'm not rooting for Siren, but then I guess at the same time, I kind of want her still to be a good villain, and I know that ship has sailed. They have redeemed every version of her and turned her into like goody two shoes, and then the version of her who was supposedly good was not good. You know, they can't stick to the bit on anyone. It's like they have a version of her that kind of is supposed to be good but is actually like super self-righteous, and then you want to lean into like the self-righteous, like she can be the voice of judgment and of like cold justice, and that can be really complex and interesting and cool and different, and they like no, then she actually isn't that. I don't know, they can't create a consistent character around her, so they can't create complexity around her, because any given female character can be multiple things, and I think Lila is a good example of that. Lila can be good, can be a mother, can be badass, can be morally ambiguous, can make potentially terrible or ethically bereft choices, but then also make incredibly self-sacrificing and cool choices. Moira is another good example of a complex female character. They've done it before for at least X amount of time, you know, and they'll slip up for some reason, this character in particular, and I think it's because they keep eventually going this route of like self-righteousness with her. And I'm fine with a self-righteous female character as well. It's just not justified in the character development that they've brought her up to. It just kind of... Anyways, Mia tonight was fantastic though. And Mia, like, I'm prepared to love, I guess, going into this because I like the character concept, I like the character backstory, I like her superpowers, I like her weaknesses, I like her strength. There's just a lot they've set up with Mia that I think is really cool. But they put themselves in the position where, yeah, she is, you know, young and female and can easily come across as like this sort of like teenage girl brat type of thing because it's the CW and that's how they write teen girls. And then when you also factor in the fact that she's sort of like this fighter, fight club type of thing, it gives her a bit of edge, but it starts to make people expect a sort of toughness from her that when you do see the like young teenage girl type of thing, or young teenager, not even necessarily like some sort of stereotypically feminine characteristic, just the typical teenage characteristic of like snap judgments, you know, overestimating their own abilities or underestimating their own abilities or whatever. When you start to get that after having set her up as edgy, sometimes people kind of push back on that because it's like, wait, you sold me a fighter, why are they also a teenager? And it's like, because it's a teen fighter. I don't even know if she's a teen. Somebody in the chat tell me how old she is actually supposed to be. I think she may be like early 20s or something like that, but like a young adult character. Kate says the part where Mia only heard the good tales of her felt weird. Yes, Felicity became a friend with Laurel, but it still didn't fit. Yeah, that was just sort of... And again, it could be because there's like so many versions of Laurel floating around. Maybe Felicity just sort of told like a summary tale of all of them. I don't know. Stormy says, for me, the bird characters, Sarah side, never worked. They always felt forced, and I feel like that'll be the case in the spinoff. Mia was fantastic, but poor Oliver. She's most interested in the less than stellar past of her father. I did adore Oliver training her, and mentions of Felicity. Stormy also says Mia is 20 or 21. Okay, so that's close enough to being a teen. That's basically a teen. I'm old, so to me that's teen. Yes, Mia was fantastic, and I think when we see her interested in the less than stellar aspects of Oliver, it's because she's trying to feed into this sort of premise that she's already had of him being this sort of, you know, bad guy, near deadbeat, I don't know, whatever. And she's reconciling that with who she's now seeing, and so she's trying to create this complex character of somebody in between. So she's sort of like, she's bonding with Oliver, but then she also wants to sort of keep the chip on her shoulder and be like, you've made bad decisions, you've done bad things too, all of that. And she also wants to make fun of his past hair, which he deserves because the ways on the show are terrible. Okay, so in terms of favorite moments from tonight, I really enjoyed all of the sequences of Oliver training Mia or Oliver and Mia fighting alongside each other. I would say that that's kind of the obvious highlight, and it's kind of a rare thing to get to see on a show like this. A lot of times you see the hero or heroine end with, like they, had kids and are maybe happy with whoever is alive by the end. But you don't necessarily get to see them having this whole, like, relationship with their adult children or training them on how to fight or all of that, unless you get, like, a flash forward montage. I think that's pretty rare. Or, like, a time travel type of thing, like what The Flash did, and even then that was a little different. I thought this was really cool, and it takes something that could be cheesy in the context of Arrow, like time travel, and kind of justifies it by making it cool. And if it's cool, we're willing to suspend disbelief. Stormy says, I think Mia is trying to reconcile who her father is. Her mom talked about Oliver as a hero, whereas Star City treated him like a villain. He is a complex hero. He is a complex hero, and it calls to mind how the crossover as well. I'm just realizing how not centered I am. There we go. Now my face is in the middle, just what we all wanted. It makes me wonder how in the crossover his journey ends, and not whether he'll be alive or dead, but sort of how he'll be remembered. Does he go out as a clear hero? Does he go out with people saying he's a villain? Sorry, I'm yawning because I'm tired because you see those boxes behind me? It's because I'm packing because I'm moving. I know. I'm really excited about it too. This backdrop will go away in I think a week or two. Wild. Stormy says, I loved Oliver with his kids and opening up to them. Being honest with them isn't a bad thing. Anatolia is right. They aren't a kid and they can handle it. Especially William. Like, William is a whole... I guess if Mia is 21 and William is supposed to be 12 or 13 years older than her, then William is in his mid-30s, which means he's, like, pretty much Oliver's age. I guess Oliver's kind of bordering on mid to late 30s. William's basically a middle-aged man. Like, he's a businessman. He's built this entire, like, company, and he's got, like, a whole life. This is not a kid. I know he's supposed to be like this funny, geeky, techie type of, they keep trying to recreate versions of Felicity, and the closest they're getting to it is William, like, to be fair. But he is not a child as much as Oliver is like, oh, when I look at you guys, I see children. I see clear adults, but okay. Yeah, Stormy says William's 33. Makes sense. This checks out. Okay, what do you guys want to see in the remaining 5 episodes of Arrow, which isn't even really true because there's going to be a crossover, and I don't consider that to be an Arrow episode. It has Arrow characters in it. I'll watch it. I'm not really complaining, but really there are only 4 episodes of Arrow left. So what do you want to see from Arrow in the 4 episodes of Arrow left? Now that I say that there's 4, it's actually even like, we know that the episode before the crossover is going to be the most hardcore, just setting up for the crossover. Like, this entire season is just setting up for the crossover, but the episode before is going to clearly be like a funnel into the crossover. And the episode after the crossover will be the actual finale, which does count as an Arrow episode, or better count as an Arrow episode. I do not want to see the finale be like just crossover denouement, if that makes sense. So in the remaining, 3.5 to 4 episodes of real Arrow content, what would you like to see for our heroes? Let's see. Stormy says, one cute line was Mia telling Oliver she can't cook. He said, that makes sense. None of the smoke ladies can cook. I like that Felicity was always like wifey material, but not in the traditional like can cook way. She was wifey material in the like can save your ass way. Ben Levine says, you look beautiful. Thank you. Very sweet. Stormy says, I want more Oliver bonding with his kids. Same for Dig. I want Oliver to get some form of a happy ending because the man has been through so much, and I'm so excited for Emily to be back. I think a happy ending would be the most surprising ending as well, right? And it's also, it's Arrow, and you would expect them to have the darkest ending of all of them, and it would be cool if they have a brighter ending. I want to see Oliver's kids live. I want to see the future spin-off have some element of brightness to it. And currently in the future spin-off, the element of brightness is the team members themselves, right? The setting is not very bright, but we love William, Mia, Connor. I don't know about JJ, but like, I think the JJ thing is kind of cool. And that's what makes it bright. But I would also like to see some sort of optimism for the future in that it has changed. That, I think, is what would be cool. Also added in the chat, I want all other hero shows to give Oliver the respect he is due. I mean, that, yeah, and that kind of goes without saying, like, they wouldn't exist without Arrow, so that's the respect that's due. And what I was mentioning, I think, on Twitter at some point this week, is essentially now that Arrow's ended, at any point, if they just wanted to magnanimously give other shows a ratings boost or whatever, they can pop onto any of the other shows. Recall, for example, that when Flash started, the only chemistry test they even did for that show was between Grant Gustin and Emily Bett. So basically, having characters fit in some way with the Arrowverse is the main thing that mattered. And then all other spin-offs were spun off of Arrow. You have Legends, all of those characters first appeared on Arrow. Supergirl, to an extent, their integration into the Arrowverse happened through the show Arrow. Batwoman, likewise, first appeared in a crossover that was an Arrow-centric crossover, etc. Yeah, the respect for Arrow, I think, is kind of going to be key for the crossover, especially with Arrow actually technically ending. And really, Arrow ended, like, last season, and they're just magnanimously producing 10 final episodes to ramp up to this crossover so everybody watches it, because otherwise, if it was a crossover of just Flash, Legends, and Supergirl, would everybody watch it? Not many. Anyways, before I go down into, you know, complaining about Flash and other shit, I've really kept up on Supergirl this season, actually. Really been enjoying that. As a side note, I love Lena Luthor, and I will defend her till my dying breath. And I do not care how villainous that show makes her. She still will be my favorite, and she deserves a happy ending. That's all. That's my salty little rabbit trail. We're gonna have that be about Supergirl rather than Flash. Thank you guys for joining. If you have any other thoughts or theories about the remaining 3.75 episodes of Arrow that remain, feel free to drop a comment. My information is also in the description down below. You can chat with me on Twitter or whatever other social media that you use, and I will see you all same time, same place next week. I think it's next week. We're not going back on hiatus again. I think it's next week. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!